Slide 1, Title Slide. This is a Department of Human Services licensed child care center e-learning facility. Slide 2, Finding and Securing a Location.
Before submitting an application, the applicant must have a location designated in which child care services will be provided. When finding a location, there are multiple considerations. You will be required to submit a specific address with your application. That address may be a location such as a part of another business like as a church or community center, where specific space will be designated to be used exclusively for the child care during the hours of operation. The address may be a location that is part of another building with completely separate spaces, such as a location within a strip mall. Alternatively, the address may be a location where child care will be provided in a freestanding building. Additionally, the address can be a future location where a building will be constructed for the child care center. You will be required to submit the specific address with your application. However, you may or may not currently own, lease, or have possession of the space at that address. However, you will need to have enough of an agreement regarding the purchasing, leasing, or possession of the space that will allow for required components of the application. Before a license is granted, you will need to own, lease, or have possession of the space. The local zoning authority will need to approve the location to be used for child care services. In addition, you will want to ensure that during the application process, the facility will pass inspections by other agencies including health, fire, and building. Child care center licensing laws in Minnesota have specific requirements related to the indoor facility and outdoor space where child care will occur. It is highly encouraged that applicants consider all the child care center licensing requirements, any enhancements to the facility to make the space suitable for group child care, the usable square footage, the outdoor activity area, and the operation plan when choosing a facility and location. It is also important to consider hazards and potential environmental toxins when choosing a facility to ensure the location is safe for child care.
Slide 3, Building and Location Requirements.
Understanding the various requirements for your facility can be difficult. Do your homework before submitting your application to ensure that you understand the various local, county, or state requirements for your facility. In order for a license to be granted, licensing will require zoning approval. Zoning is the first stop for anyone who wants to know if a child care center is allowed at the proposed address. Zoning approval is based upon the zoning laws of the area in which the facility is located. Licensing will send a request for zoning approval to the local authority after an application is received. However, it would be wise for an applicant to look into zoning requirements during the process of choosing a location. In addition to zoning approval, all child care center applications will need building, health, and fire inspection approvals before a license is granted. The building inspection ensures that the space meets all local building codes and building requirements specific to child care. The health inspection will be conducted by a state or local health inspector. The health inspection determines whether a food license is needed, dependent on the level of food preparation and handling that will occur at the child care center. If a food license is required, the health inspector will ensure the facility meets the food code requirements for Minnesota Rules, Chapter 4626. Fire inspections must be conducted by the state fire marshal or local fire code inspector approved by the state fire marshal. The fire inspections ensures the facility meets all fire code requirements. As with zoning, it is recommended that an applicant look into building, health, and fire inspection requirements prior to submitting an application. After an application is submitted, DHS will initiate the official, required inspections. You can find support in understanding the various codes from many sources. Child Care Wayfinder has local navigators that can help connect applicants with resources. If the building is under construction, your construction company or architect will be able to assist with the fire and building codes. The State Fire Marshal website has a resource showing the step-by-step process individuals can follow before a fire inspection is requested by DHS. The Minnesota Department of Health, Choose Safe Places Minnesota is an optional program that will work with a program to determine the history of a prospective location or existing licensed child care center and uncover potential environmental hazards that pose a risk to children.
Slide 4, Facility and Floor Plan Requirements.
A facility floor plan will need to be submitted at the time of application. Indoor and outdoor space to be used for childcare must be clearly designated on the facility floor plan and used exclusively by the center during the hours of operation. The floor plan must have all of the space labeled with the planned use for the space and the estimated size. At least 35 square feet of space is required per child that you are looking to serve. At the pre-licensing visit, a licensor will measure space to determine the specific capacity for which the license will be granted. Keep in mind that hallways, stairways, closets, utility rooms, boiler rooms, bathrooms, kitchens, and space occupied by cribs may not be counted as indoor space capacity. Spaces such as gyms or cafeterias can be used for activities that occur outside the classroom, but are not counted when determining overall capacity. Since licensed child care centers exist in different types of facilities, such as standalone buildings or perhaps a space within a school or church, it is important that you reach out to licensing if you have questions about the planned use of a space. The floor plan must indicate the toilets and sinks in the center to be used by children. The center must have at least one hand sink and one toilet for each 15 children. Any hand sink required for children must be in the toilet area. Additionally, hand-washing sinks must be within 3 feet of any diaper changing area. The floor plan must identify the tornado shelter, as well as all primary and secondary exits. Programs must submit a floor plan for the outdoor activity area. This can be included in one floor plan with the indoor facility or can be submitted as a separate document. The outdoor activity area floor plan must include dimensions and indicate any areas that will be used by specific age categories. The total outdoor activity area must be at least 1,500 square feet, and there must be at least 75 square feet of space per child within the area at any given time during use. Outdoor activity areas can be used for multiple age categories. However, programs are required to have the age categories use the area at separate times, and there must be age-appropriate materials for each age category. Additionally, law does require outdoor activity areas to be enclosed if located adjacent to a traffic, rail, water, machinery, or other environmental hazard, unless the area is a public park or playground. Centers can use public parks or playgrounds as their outdoor activity area. If using a public park or playground, it must be within 1/2 mile of the center and must be within 2,000 feet of the center if staff and children will be walking to the park. If you are opting to use a public park as your outdoor activity area, you will need to submit the address of the park and the route in which staff and children will take to get to the park as a part of your floor plan.
Slide 5, Equipment.
While every center is unique and much of what you purchase for equipment may be based on the layout of the facility or your program's philosophy, Minnesota Rules, Part 9503.0060 will tell you what is required by licensing. Equipment lists of these requirements can be found on our Child Care Center licensing webpage under Forms and Other Documents. Equipment is broken down into age categories, and some pieces of equipment will require a certain number of items be per child, and some will be per group of children. A group of infants is 8. A group of toddlers is 14. A group of preschoolers is 20. A group of school-aged children is 30. Classrooms can be licensed to serve a number of children smaller or larger than one group. In those situations, determining the required amount of equipment can be tricky. For partial groups served in one classroom, it is important that you reach out to licensing. While you may not be operating at full capacity when you are first issued your license, you will be required to have equipment present in the classroom and ready for use. For example, a program that wants to serve 20 preschoolers will need to have the equipment to serve 20 preschoolers before a license is granted, even if only 10 preschoolers are enrolled at the time of licensure.
Slide 6, Equipment Lists.
Equipment requirements are broken down based upon the ages of the children that will be served within the classroom. DHS has created lists of required equipment for each age category that may be served by a licensed child care center. These lists can be found by visiting the Licensed Child Care Center website, Forms section. Lists are available for infant, toddler, preschooler, and school-aged classrooms. In Minnesota Rule, Part 9503.0060, there are definitions for some equipment items that are helpful. Infant mobility equipment is equipment that helps infants move themselves or helps others to move them. Visual and tactile stimulating materials engage the senses of sight and touch with shapes, colors, and textures to explore. Manipulative toys or equipment connects together in different ways. Manipulatives can be activities that incorporate tongs, latches, locks, lacing, stringing beads, pegboards, rattles, shape blocks, stacking toys, puzzles, or bead mazes. Large muscle equipment engages the large muscles of the arms, legs, and core of the body by balancing, pedaling, jumping, climbing, rocking, or pulling. Cognitive development equipment can include matching games, concept puzzles, magnifying glasses, items from nature, physical health and hygiene tools and equipment related to sorting letters, numbers, and shapes.
Slide 7, Classroom Arrangement.
Child care centers are required to arrange their equipment and materials into interest areas. Interest areas include creative arts and crafts, construction, dramatic or practical life activities, science, music, fine motor activities, large muscle activities, and sensory stimulation activities. Child care centers must provide children daily access to all interest areas except for those that are open for less than 3 hours per day, operate less than 90 consecutive days in a calendar year, and school-age-only programs. Those programs need to provide access to at least 5 of the 8 interest areas daily. All interest areas need to have supplies, equipment, and materials needed to carry out the activities outlined in the Child Care Center's Child Care Program Plan. The Child Care Program Plan is a document that all centers are required to create. The Child Care Program Plan is specific to the center's approach, including educational methods, goals and objectives for children's learning, and planned schedules and activities.
Slide 8. Outdoor activity equipment.
The outdoor play area must contain the outdoor large muscle equipment. Large muscle equipment means equipment that is designed to enhance large muscle development and coordination and includes items such as playground equipment, large boxes and pillows, large reel toys, pull toys, balls, jump ropes, climbers, and rocking boats. If a program has climbing playground equipment to meet the large muscle requirement, consider the fall zone and the surface material of the play area. Surfaces around and under playground equipment must be covered with a sufficient amount of material such as wood chips, mulch, sand, pea gravel, or safety-tested rubber-like material. It is recommended that programs follow manufacturer guidelines for appropriate use of equipment, including the recommended age categories. In addition, the area must be free of litter, rubbish, toxic materials, water hazard, machinery, animal waste, and sewage contaminants.
Slide 9. Facility and Equipment Risk Reduction Plan.
As you are planning for your child care facility, keep in mind that you are required to develop a risk reduction plan. An assessment of the risks presented by the physical building and grounds must be conducted. You need to consider the condition and design of the facility and its outdoor space. As well, the bathrooms, storage areas, the type of grounds and terrain surrounding the building pose inherent risks and must be addressed. Consider the proximity to hazards, busy roads, and publicly accessed businesses, as well as the accessibility of medications and cleaning products that are harmful to children. The requirement for centers to create a risk reduction plan is in place because child care center facilities vary and each can create unique risks. A risk reduction plan allows license holders to identify and plan for any potential risks in the individual facility. If you are designing or renovating a facility, consider ways to lessen risk. For example, if you are able to have bathrooms located inside classrooms, you lessen having to transition children throughout the building. Thinking through potential risks and having a plan will allow for the best possible outcome in keeping children safe in your facility.
Slide 10. Emergency Preparedness.
As you are planning for your child care facility, keep in mind that you are going to be required to develop a child care emergency plan. This plan outlines what the program will do in the instance of a shelter-in-place or lockdown situation and in situations where the building needs to be evacuated. It also requires procedures for notifying parents, how accommodations are made for infants, toddlers, and children with a disability or chronic medical condition, how centers will ensure they have medically necessary medication, procedures for continuing operations and procedures for communicating with appropriate officials. Identified relocation sites and evacuation routes to those sites must be posted in the center. It is required in law that child care centers use the DHS Child Care Emergency Plan that is found on the licensed child care center website.
Slide 11. Items required to be posted in the facility.
There are several items that will need to be posted in the facility. An evacuation map must be posted in each space used by children that indicates the primary and secondary exits and tornado shelters. On the evacuation map, you will need to identify the persons that are responsible for each area, the building evacuation routes, and the relocation site listed on your child care emergency plan. You will need to have telephone numbers and sources of emergency medical and dental care, poison control, fire department, health authority, and DHS licensing division posted somewhere that is accessible to your staff. Instructions on how to use a fire extinguisher and how to close off the fire area needs to be posted. Diaper changing procedures need to be posted in all of the diaper changing areas. If a center chooses to have staff who are experienced aides, the center is required to post in each classroom where an experienced aide works an identification of the experienced aide for parents. Once you receive your license, it must be posted in a conspicuous place within the child care center. If applicable, a license holder must also post any orders of conditions, fines, substantiated maltreatment, suspension or revocation of the license by DHS.
Slide 12, thank you.
If you have questions or need assistance with the information provided, please contact the licensor on call at 651-431-6015 or email dhs.ccc.licensing@state.mn.us. The content in this video is current as of the date presented. The licensing division reserves the right to update or revise as applicable. Thank you for watching.